Hello class. So we've talked about converting fractions and decimals to fractions. Now we need to be able to convert from decimals to percents and percents to decimals. So one of the things that I want you to think about is this memory model. And I am going to make a correction to the notes. They should say decimal to percent and percents to decimals. In our memory model, memory models are word phrases or pictures that can help you remember how to do things in math. So one of the things I want you to think about is the word decimal and percent. And you write them in alphabetical order, or at least write the first letter of each word in alphabetical order. So D and then P. And then we're going to use these arrows to help us figure out which direction we're going to move the decimal. Because that's really all converting decimals and percents are about. It's about moving the decimal. Because whenever you multiply anything by 10, 100, 1,000, it ends up moving the decimal. So thinking about percent means out of 100. That is a very important phrase that we need to remember about percents. It's always out of 100. So whenever we convert decimals to percents or percents to decimals, we want to find the decimal value in our number. And you need to remember that in whole numbers, the decimal is at the end. We don't see it, but it's just sitting there waiting to be moved. Then you want to decide which way you're going to convert and use the memory model to move the decimal 2 places. So we're moving, this is the important part, moving 2 places. And if you made any spaces because you had to move that decimal, you're going to use zeros as placeholders whenever you need them. Then you add or drop the percent sign depending on what we're doing. So you can move a decimal to percent. And looking at our memory model that we wrote in alphabetical order, if I convert from decimal to percent, I'm moving to the right 2 places. If I am converting from percent to decimal, here's my memory model, percent to decimal, I am going to be moving left 2 places. So let's try it out on our examples. First thing I want to do is I want to write my memory model so I remember what I'm doing. Decimal, percent, alphabetical order. I figure out what I'm doing. I am converting percent to a decimal. Percent to a decimal, and I draw my arrow. That helps me remember which way I'm going to move the decimal. So I write my number, 36%. My decimal is at the end of a whole number, and I need to move it left 2 places. So now my decimal is 0.36, and I drop that percent sign. Let's try another one. We have 4.5%. Let me draw that memory model. I am going percent to decimals, so I know I'm going to have to move left. Write my percent, I find that decimal, and I'm going to move it left 1, 2 spaces. Now that space that I created, I'm going to have to put a 0 to hold on to that space. So I have 0.045, and I drop that percent sign because I've converted to a decimal. So let's try converting to a percent. Memory model, alphabetical order. I'm going from a decimal to a percent this time. That means I'm going to move my decimal to the right. So let's write our decimal, move it right, and it helps to create these movement marks. And then I will rewrite it as a percent. I got to add that percent sign. Notice that I dropped that 0. I don't need a 0 in front. It doesn't change my number, but it's not something we